They called her wicked. They said she crashed a baby shower. What if I told you she was just a single mom with a tight schedule, a betrayed heart, zero tolerance for workplace backstabbing? Well,
oh dear, what an awkward situation.
welcome to the Hard Knock University, where villains get performance reviews and leadership lessons come gift-wrapped in fire and feathers. This week, we're breaking down the battle-tested brilliance of Maleficent. Yeah, the winged HR nightmare, and unpacking how misunderstood maternal energy, trauma-informed leadership, and boundary setting can either build a kingdom or burn it to the ground.
Now shall you deal with me, O Prince, and all the powers of hell!
And because it's Mother's Day, we brought the heat. Joining me this week, we have the whip-smart Caroline Moncion Trinidad, who knows a thing or two about managing chaos with grace, and my brother from the same mother, Seth Caples, to ask the real question, was Maleficent a bad leader or just a mom who finally dropped the ball? And speaking of that, our book of the week, Drop the Ball by Tiffany Dufu. A gut punch and a grace note for every overwhelmed woman who's ever tried to lead, love, and load the damn dishwasher.
I'm going to bake the cake.
You? Oh, she's always wanted to, dear, and this is her last chance.
Well, I'm going to make it 15 layers with pink and blue forget-me-not.
And she's never cooked. Oh, it's simple.
All you do is follow the book.
So grab your horns, polish your staff, and let's take flight. This is the Hard Knock University, where real talk meets real lessons, and this week, we're rewriting the fairy tale.
Oh, hi, Mark. So why specifically project management and leadership?
Because that's what the book is about.
Why is the book about that?
It's a made-up tale. The 7 sacred lessons from the School of Hard Knocks.
This one was invented by a writer.
I learned the hard way. Actually, it was a good learning experience.
It's a total fabrication. It never happened.
It's the Hard Knock University podcast, where real talk meets real lessons, and we all graduate with honors in the School of Life.
Wretched, isn't it?
Calling all musicians and industry pros. Do you want to turn your hard knocks into breakthroughs? Well, season 2 of the Hard Knock University podcast is proud to be sponsored by SMG Academy, the ultimate music industry mentorship platform founded by 20-year veteran Mark Caples. SMG Academy delivers real-world training from touring strategies to publishing secrets straight from the trenches of the Texas music scene. Whether you're an artist, a manager, a songwriter, it doesn't matter. SMG's courses and community will fast-track your success. Are you ready to level up? Visit smgacademy.online and use code HKU2025 for 15% off of your enrollment. SMG Academy, where hustle meets harmony. Last week, we strapped on our silver jumpsuits and dug into the bold, baffling brilliance of Dr. Evil, a masterclass in ego-driven project. We talked about how not every visionary deserves a leadership role, especially when their billion-dollar idea is literally a laser beam pointed at Earth. If you missed it, go back. It's like if Austin Powers taught a PMI course. It's brilliant stuff, really. I'm proud.
Actually, the boy's quite astute. He's quite wily, like his old man.
But this week, we're trading $1 million for one broken heart and a scorched fairy tale. We're going to talk about Maleficent, misunderstood matriarch and boundary-setting queen. But first, so I got to talk about my wife, Jen. For 20 years, she's been in the trenches of childcare and early childhood development, helping kids grow, learn, and not stick forks in electrical outlets. We didn't come from money, no trust funds, no legacy admissions, just long nights, student debt, and a whole lot of pig-headed determination. But Jen clawed her way through night school, one exam and exhausted dinner break at a time. And now, this fall, Jen is stepping into her own classroom as a second-grade teacher. Guys, that's not just a career move. That's a full circle victory lap. And I don't care how tough you are, watching the woman you love step into her calling, that'll put a lump in your throat and swagger in your step. She's brilliant. She's resilient. She's out here shaping the next generation, and I'm just proud I remembered where I parked.
Feels like that to some of us sometimes, doesn't it?
Now let's talk about what her and every school teacher in Texas is up against right now. This month, the school voucher program made another lap around the legislative sewer system. And if you're wondering how it's going, well, just look at Arizona, where poor families are now footing the bill for the rich to send their kids to elite private schools. Now in Texas, Elon Musk's kids are going to attend elite private schools on your dime. Billionaires used to sponsor hospital wings and public libraries. Now they're sponsoring politicians to gut the system and call it choice. Look, it's not choice, it's that. And teachers like my wife, Jen, who have sacrificed, hustled, and served are the ones paying the real price. But hey, I believe in fighting fire with facts, and maybe a little humor.
Hello there. Anyone? Can someone call an ambulance? I'm in quite a lot of pain.
Oh.
See, I designed this device myself. Ah, good. I'm glad you found me. Listen, I'm very badly burned, so if you could just... You shot me.
Okay, moving on.
You shot me right in the arm.
Speaking of fighting back, I just finished writing my brand new seminar, Built from Mistakes, Leading Projects When Nothing Goes to Plan. This one's for the underdogs, the managers who inherited dumpster fires, the leaders who have been thrown in the deep end with no floaties and broken scope docket. It's raw, it's real, and it's got stories that will make you laugh, cringe, and maybe rethink your next Gantt chart. If you want to bring me in to speak at your event, company, or leadership retreat, head over to leadershipknocks.com and let's make that happen. All right, enough about me. Coming up, Maleficent, the misunderstood project lead with a grudge, a green flame budget, and one hell of a risk management plan. That and more next on the Hard Knock University podcast. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in again. I'm Mark Caples. This is the Hard Knock University podcast. We're going to dive into our interview with Caroline Moncion, Trinidad, and my brother, Seth Caples, where we're going to break down the leadership and project management, as well as the motherhood skills of one Maleficent from the 2014 movie featuring Angelina Jolie. Enjoy. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the Hard Knock University podcast. I'm joined by my brother, Seth Caples, repeat offender here at the podcast, producer, and then friend of the podcast from season 1, Caroline Moncion, Trinidad. Thanks for joining us again. We had a good time last time. We talked about, always being the translator in project management. One of my favorite chapters of the book and a great episode of the podcast. And in this one, we're not going to talk about any of that because I couldn't think of anything in this that I could tie back to that specific chapter, but we're going to have a good, fun conversation. And this is also our Mother's Day episode. So it's important that we have somebody with some actual motherhood experience to share their insights. So this movie came out May 30th, 2014. That week, this was the #1 movie in the United States. It did $24.3 million its opening day. The #1 song was All of Me by John Legend. Major news events. Maya Angelou passed away that week on the 28th at 86. And there was a war going on in Syria. Notable births. Future Zaire Wilburn, son of singer Ciara. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know. And rapper Future was born May 19th. I remember when this movie came out being excited because it had been announced that Disney was going to start doing these live action versions of the classics that we love. Sleeping Beauty came out in 1959. And, I grew up in the 80s and it was always on. I mean, I watched Sleeping Beauty to prepare for this before I watched Maleficent. And it just like keystone memories synapses is firing up from when I was a child. You know what I mean?
So did you like how they kept Angelina Jolie looking a lot like the villain from the classic?
Loved it. She had a lot of say in that. Like the producers of the movie got nervous because she wanted to be involved in, the costume design and making sure that it was the way that she liked it. And that made the producers nervous. But I think that it worked out for the better. She looked amazing.
She did. She did.
Those sharp cheekbones, they're impossible. There's no way anybody in the world has those sharp a cheekbone, but man, she made it look good. And I mean, and I know it's to make her seem a little more, villainous, but I'd ask for a number. If I wasn't married. I'm very married. What about you, Caroline? What does this movie mean to you when it first came out?
Well, I was very pleased when it came out. I actually shouted. I knew there was a backstory to this. Ever since I first called watching it as a child, I said, there's more to this. There's something I caught there between Maleficent and Stefan, the king.
Yeah, King Stefan. Yeah, when she first shows up in the cartoon, everybody knows her. It's our first introduction to her, but it's like, everybody in this palace knows exactly who she is, and she's like, I didn't get invited. She's offended that she didn't get invited, and they recreate that real well in this movie.
Yeah, it was almost like she was declaring that he owed her something to me, and I was very young. I was born in 73. Yeah. Watching it in the 80s it stayed with me until the movie came out, and all of a sudden, I knew there was a backstory. There has to be a backstory, and
sure,
it was exactly what I thought it was going to. It turned out exactly the way I thought it.
Uh-oh. Can't have that.
I wonder who that is.
Let's mute that. All right. So the way that we do this is I just go through the synopsis on IMDb and read through it. And then, after each paragraph, we discuss. You know what I'm saying? So the storyline from IMDb, a beautiful, pure-hearted young woman, Maleficent, has an idyllic life growing up in a peaceable forest kingdom until the day an invading army threatens the harmony of the land. Maleficent rises to the land's fiercest protector, but she ultimately suffers a ruthless betrayal, an act that turns her pure heart to stone. Bent on revenge, Maleficent faces a battle with the invading king's successor. As a result, she places a curse on his newborn daughter, Aurora. As the child grows, Maleficent realizes that Aurora holds the key to peace in the kingdom and perhaps to Maleficent's true happiness as well. That's a pretty good one. These are submitted by users, and some of them are not very good. I feel like that one really encapsulated the movie well. So jumping in, at the beginning of the movie, an elderly narrator tells the story of Maleficent, a very strong and powerful fairy living in the moors. Now, I take issue with them calling it the moors. And I Googled it. I'm like, why did they do that? There's nothing on it. And I seem to be the only one that takes issue with it. And here's the thing. The original movie, the cartoon from 59, took place... it was supposed to take place in France. This one seems like it takes place in Scotland because, King Stefan has a thick Scottish accent. But in the era, in the Dark Ages, the Moors were an actual civilization of people that came from Northern Africa across to Spain and started, their own little Muslim culture in Spain. And they were invaded and defeated and not treated well at all. And Hollywood in general has a bad habit of whitewashing historical events. And this just seems like, par for the course to me. Am I the only one that didn't like it?
I didn't like it.
I didn't make the connection. Blow my mind. That particular detail just went right over my head.
Yeah. And then they call the forest, the moorland. There's just so many other things you could have called it. But let's roll with it. Oh. It doesn't ruin the movie. The movie's still good. So long ago, two rival kingdoms sat side by side, which are the human kingdom ruled by a vain and powerful hungry king, and the Moors, a peaceful place inhabited by many gentle supernatural creatures. One resident of the Moors is Maleficent, a young fairy girl with enormous wings who acts as a guardian for other magical beings. Now, I had a hard time going, how is she a fairy, And I think they kind of get into that in the second movie, which I've seen, but I don't really remember very well. But I can't wait to have you back to do that one as well. That'll be a fun episode as well. But, yeah, she's more like I don't know. There's all kinds of other creatures from mythology that we could have called her other than a fairy. Yeah.
It's weird that they cut. She's the biggest fairy I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
She's literally a dragon. That's why she has the sharp cheekbones and the wings. And in the Disney version, it's why she transforms into a dragon when she's fighting.
Didn't she even have like those iconic like claws or nails at the ends of her wings and stuff?
Yeah, she does.
She's a dragon.
She's a dragon.
Yeah. And in the first movie, she turns into the dragon. In this one, she turns Diaval into a dragon. Young Maleficent is alerted by 3 small fairies, Knotgrass, Little, and Thistlewit. Thistlewit's played by Juno Temple, who was in that show with Jason Sudeikis about the soccer team.
Iconic one that we can't think of the name.
Yeah.
No. Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso. So Juno was Whistletwit. What is it? What's her? Where I lost it.
I like the names from the classic cartoon.
Thistlewit. What were they called in the classic cartoon?
They were like fauna,
Flora,
and what was the animal?
Well, why'd they change their names? That's not fair at all.
I really liked them. What was the other one? Like Merryweather or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
Merryweather.
It was Merryweather.
Don't apologize. People cough. You know how many coughs of my own I've had to edit out? I'm not gonna be mad for somebody else doing it. I read that originally they thought about getting the ladies that played the witches in Bette Midler, the chick from Sex and the City, and the chick that did
Hocus Pocus. The lady.
Yeah, Hocus Pocus.
That's right.
King of the Hill, Peg.
That would have been
Peggy Hill is the voice actor, the other witch from Hocus Pocus. Yeah, they were going to get them to be the fairies, and they decided against it. Also, they talked about getting Tim Burton to do this movie, which would have been a completely different movie, but it would have been really cool. Yeah. I'm a big Tim Burton.
Me too.
So the fairies come along to say that a thief has been apprehended by the forest guards at the Moors border. The thief, a human boy called Stefan, returns the jewel he had taken and explains that he is an orphan with no real home. Maleficent forgives him, and the two strike up a friendship that lasts for several years. On Maleficent's 16th birthday, Stefan gives her true love's kiss, but then abandons her to pursue his thirst for power in the king's inner circle. Meanwhile, Maleficent, now grown, becomes protector of the Moors. As they grow older, Stefan stops seeing Maleficent. So, that's when we first start to get to know who Stefan is, at the same time that we're getting to know who young Maleficent is. And there's this, kind of a romance budding, and it doesn't work out, and apparently the dating pool is super shallow in the Moorland. You don't see any other suitable bachelors in the Moorland at all. When King Henry, the human kingdom's ruler, attempts to conquer the Moors, Maleficent mortally wounds him, forcing his retreat. Henry makes known his hatred for the winged woman who defends the Moors. On his deathbed, Henry declares that whoever brings proof of Maleficent's death will be king and marry his daughter, Leela. Stefan overhears this and goes to see Maleficent. Stefan returns to the Moors at night, reconnects with Maleficent, who is happy and not at all suspicious to see her friend again. Stefan deceives her into thinking that he has come to warn her of the king's plot. He drugs her and attempts to kill her, but cannot bring himself to do so. Instead, he cuts off her wings using iron, as iron burns fairies, and presents them to the king as proof of her death.
Big mistake.
Yeah, so Stefan's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
He was a bad boyfriend at the beginning. Like I said, dating pool is shallow. Clearly, Maleficent doesn't have a lot of choices.
And this is why she is, from here on out, hell-bent on revenge.
Yeah. And so we get into, I always frame each of the characters as if they've got a business plan. And for Maleficent, she's there to reclaim and protect the Moors, ensuring harmony between magical and the human realms. And so her mission is to utilize strategic alliances and transformative leadership to heal past wounds and foster unity. Whereas King Stefan is there to establish human supremacy over all the territories, including the magical realm. And so his mission is to utilize military strength and political maneuvering to conquer and control. And it starts at a young age, he plays his cards early on.
Stefan is the villain of the movie?
Yes. He did more than cut off her wings. That's
right.
Yeah. I mean, in the very beginning, when, he tells her, if I knew you were going to throw away that jewel, I wanted to give it to you. It's like, dude, she saved you from the guards. They make it very clear that he's a terrible person. The realization that Stefan betrayed her to gain the throne devastates Maleficent, and in retaliation, she declares herself Queen of the Moors, forming a dark, oppressive kingdom with Diavel as her one companion and confidant. Maleficent infuses her surroundings with dark magic and pitting herself once and for all against Stefan, ruler of the human kingdom. Sometime later, Diavel informs Maleficent that King Stefan is hosting a christening for his newborn daughter, Aurora. Bent on revenge, Maleficent arrives uninvited and curses the newborn princess that before the sun sets on Aurora's 16th birthday, Aurora will prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and fall into a death-like sleep. After
specific. I love it.
It is.
It's weird.
Yeah. After Stefan is forced by Maleficent to beg for his daughter, Maleficent mocks Stefan's plea for mercy, but she offers a caveat that the curse can be broken by true love's kiss, which she and Stefan both believe is non-existent. Yeah, that's a jab at him, because he gave her true love's kiss earlier, and she's like, all right, since you begged and it gave me such pleasure to watch you do so, you can break it with true love's kiss, which she knows that he's incapable of. And they both think that it's a non-existent thing. And that scene, they do a really good job of recreating, the same scene from the cartoon with some subtle differences. And then when she's walking away, there's a laugh. You don't see her face, but you hear a laugh. And I swear that laugh was taken from the cartoon. I don't know for sure, but it sure seemed like they took
I
it
hope
from
it
the
was.
cartoon.
That would be really cool.
Yeah. Because like I'm saying, Keystone memories getting triggered here when I hear it. You know what I mean? Angelina Jolie just nailed this role. She did such a good job.
Yeah, she was a good one for the movie.
Yeah, she's really kind of an underrated actor. I don't think that she got enough. Don't get me wrong. Angelina Jolie had a lot of great roles.
People just like to hate when you look that good.
Yeah,
and when you are that.
Yeah,
that way you do.
But I think that she could have been given more roles to showcase her acting chops and not so much, how great she looks or how good she was at action. She was a good action actor too. She did Tomb Raider, Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yep.
Great at what she does. Good actress. All right.
When's she going to break out into the Marvel universe? That's what I'm waiting. I don't want her to get too old for it before it happens,
Yeah. Sometime later.
Oh, she already did.
Did she?
I'm sorry to interrupt. She already did. Yeah. I got to correct that before people freak out if they ever watch this.
When?
It was that Celestial movie,
She was in the Eternals.
Yes.
Which flopped at the box office and I think it's because it came out during COVID. It's not that it's a bad movie. It just came out during COVID.
But I don't hate much.
But yeah, she was good in that. And Marvel just kind of forgot that it existed. It's a shame. Terrified of Maleficent's vengeance, Stefan sends Aurora to live with 3 fairies, Knotgrass, Flittle, and Thistlewit, until the day after her 16th birthday, while he destroys all the spinning wheels in the kingdom and hides them in the deepest dungeon of the castle. He sends out his armies to find and kill Maleficent, but she surrounds the Moors with an impenetrable wall of thorns. Callback from the cartoon.
And a great one.
Yeah. Over the years, begins mass manufacturing iron weapons, which are lethal to fairies. And I loved the iron wall of thorns that he put together. That was cool too. So at this point, they're implementing the tasks, of their respective projects. They both build walls. They both kind of isolate the kingdoms, and you really start to see the differences in their leadership styles. Maleficent's goal here is to protect the moorland, so she implements protective enchantments to try to protect them.
She's by nature a protector and a guardian.
Yeah. Whereas King Stefan, he suppresses magical beings and he's more of an exploiter. And, he's one of those rule with an iron fist, doesn't really, neither of them are very good at forging good relationships, but they try. Despite her initial dislike for Princess Aurora, Maleficent begins to care about the girl when the careless pixies fall short in watching over her. The princess is kept safe by Maleficent's curse, which rules that she must stay alive until her 16th birthday. So this is when we really start to get into the motherhood part of it. Queen Leela, she's very briefly in this movie. She's just kind of excited that the fairies have magic gifts, and then, gone. We don't ever see her again. Not once. We don't know. And maybe she died. We don't know. There's a scene when Aurora comes back to the castle and she hugs King Stefan. He doesn't hug her back, but you look just like your mom. And that's it. That's, the last that we hear about King Leela. What are your thoughts, Queen Leela? What are your thoughts on Queen Leela's motherhood?
I think in those days, she could have fasted during childbirth or the normal thing. you have a child, you have the wet nurse, and they raise your child for you. It could be one or the other. But her motherhood was, if she was alive, it was definitely.
Then we have the adoptive guardians, the three fairies. They're well-intentioned, but they're inept.
I was thinking the same thing.
Inept is a great word.
Yeah,
I was going to say
thinking...
ditzy.
Yeah.
And I mean, they provide basic care. They give her a roof to sleep under, but they lack, emotional support. They're fairies. I guess they just don't,
they're anxiety
connection.
Yeah.
There's no motherly connection, no natural force to nurture. And
right.
that's why they're the way they are with her. That's why she almost fell off the cliff.
Yeah.
Well, she did, and then
she did fall off the cliff.
Yeah, she did.
And then you have Maleficent, the godmother figure. And initially she's, agnostic of it all, but she evolves into this protective and nurturing role where she saves her when she falls off the cliff and pretty much becomes Aurora's primary maternal figure,
Well, you said evolves. I would argue with that. By nature, you read it. She's a guardian and a protector,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it down. Guardian fairy. She's protector of the Moors.
Yeah.
So, and that's why, to me, she starts having feelings for Aurora.
Yeah.
Because it's in her nature.
Yeah. Little beastie. Yeah. So after a brief meeting with the young Aurora, Maleficent watches over her from afar. Maleficent now sees that Aurora is a good, innocent person, undeserving of such a harsh fate. When Aurora is 15, Maleficent puts a temporary sleeping spell on the girl and transports her into the Moors. When Aurora wakes, she is enchanted by the beautiful fairy kingdom and shows no fear when Maleficent makes her presence known. Aurora meets Maleficent for the first time and calls her fairy godmother, as she recalled being watched over her by her all her life. Aurora bonds with her and starts regularly visiting the Moors. Aurora grows into a pretty teenager with no inkling of her royal roots or Maleficent's curse. We should add that you see three actresses play Aurora, the baby, the adolescent, and then the teenager. The adolescent is Angelina Jolie's actual daughter.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yes.
And I read that they cast her mostly because all the other actresses were scared shitless of Angelina Jolie in her costume.
Yes. Yeah. And her daughter was the only one who wasn't.
Yeah.
So.
That's mom,
Did has her daughter done anything else after that? What year did you say this came out?
It was 2014.
Has she done anything since?
I don't know. I didn't read that.
So.
Interesting.
As Aurora's 16th birthday nears, Stefan falls deeper into paranoia. The queen is dying. Again, this is just written by people, but maybe I dozed off in that part. The queen is dying, and he knows Maleficent will return on the day the curse is set to culminate. He keeps her severed wings in a glass cabinet in an isolated wing of the palace. He becomes more and more detached from reality, having long, rambling conversations with the wings, and is deaf to any subject other than Maleficent. He sends his men to hunt her down before Aurora's birthday. Yeah, man, what a weird guy. Keeping her wings in a glass case and talking to him.
Well, he didn't think it was going to come back to haunt him and cost him the possible life of his daughter.
You know what that reminds me of just now? What is that super famous poem what is it? Oh man, forgive me for butchering this, but like a guy murders someone and then has the person's heart and he puts the heart in the floorboards
the telltale heart. Yes.
Yes. Kind of reminds me of that story.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that.
Puts the heart in the floor. I guess I should tell the story. Puts the heart in the floorboards, and then I think somebody comes to his house, and he's hearing the heartbeat in the floorboards. Am I saying this correctly?
Yes.
But it's not actually beating in the floorboards. It's just his guilt. He's just ridden with guilt.
Yeah.
He's haunted by it. Yes.
And then there's Macbeth, where the queen can't stop washing her hands. Yes. Yeah. All right, so realizing she has grown fond of the princess, Maleficent attempts to revoke the curse, but cannot, as she herself had declared that no power on earth can change it. Dieval reminds her that the true love's kiss can still break the spell, but Maleficent admits she added it as a false hope because she believed it did not exist. We get a really cool scene where you have the gold magic and the green magic. When Maleficent's using evil magic, it's green, but when it's good magic, it's gold. And you see the two kind of fight each other and the green magic wins.
I'm so mad for not catching that.
Yeah, it was a cool scene.
Aurora later meets Prince Philip, and the two are smitten with each other, but have little opportunity to build a relationship. On the day before Aurora's 16th birthday, Maleficent, hoping to avoid the curse, allows the girl to move to the moors, far away from any spindles. When she attempts to inform the pixies of this the next day, they reveal the truth about Aurora's lineage and curse. Heartbroken, Aurora rides off to her father's castle. So, I mean, Maleficent might have been able to keep her from being around any spindles, but the fairies really kind of mess that up.
Is this where she tried to remove the curse?
After Aurora's visiting the moorlands one day, and she's like, I wish I could live here. And she says, you can move here. And she's going to.
My question is that in the beginning, King Stefan said that he was going to destroy all of the spinning wheels. And then he decided to keep some locked up in the dungeon. Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
To further the story.
Yeah.
Yes, but why?
Right. No, you're 100% right.
Great question. That probably.
Yeah.
His motherhood is like.
I mean, it's not like they're made out of iron. They're made of wood. Burn them. No, we just crush them up into pieces and put them in a dungeon. Which, that's that, nearsighted, I've got a solution. It's cheap and easy, but is it the right solution?
So yeah, Stefan is very short-sighted, as you say, contrary to Maleficent, who's playing the long game with this curse and so on.
Yeah. So instead of welcoming her and still intent on killing Maleficent, Stefan locks her in a room for her safety. But she is suddenly drawn by the curse to the dungeon, where the curse magically assembles a spinning wheel from the broken parts. Aurora pricks her finger and falls asleep, intent on saving her. Maleficent abducts Philip, casts a sleeping charm on the rather confused prince, and whisks him away through the forest, hoping to get to Aurora before the curse unfolds. I love the scene where she's like, I need a horse, and looks over at Diaval, who did not like being a wolf. When she turned him into a wolf, he didn't like that at all. So he probably didn't much care for being a horse either.
Wasn't there a scene where she was like, it's a dire wolf. It was like, it's a dog.
Yeah. And Diaval, he has buy-in on this. He believes in the vision. He's not always
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's not always treated well by Maleficent. I mean, not necessarily treated horribly, but at the end of the day, he's a servant, he has a life debt to her. But he believes in the vision, he believes in her. And he has buy-in. He cares. Whereas contrast with King Stefan, he has a lot of Diavals. But whether they have buy-in or not, they have a job to do. But they sure go to battle when the dragon shows up. Aurora is carried back to her chambers and laid on the bed. Stefan is enraged, blaming the three fairies for failing to protect his daughter. Maleficent infiltrates Stefan's castle to have him kiss Aurora and break the curse. However, Philip's romantic kiss has no effect, as the two are not yet truly in love. Maleficent apologizes to Aurora and swears no harm will come to her, kissing her forehead. I thought that was great. It's a when they first announced that this movie was going to be made in a live action version, it's like, this was 11 years ago, but even then, we were already kind of awakening to, that's gross and wrong, and the way that plays out. And so they did a good job of writing that in this movie. In sharp contrast to, 11 years later, they just put out Snow White and the world's pissed off. The movie sucked. And the big controversy is that you had one guy, the most famous little person ever, Peter Dinklage, who is famous for playing dwarves multiple times, says in an off-the-cuff comment once that it's messed up to have, little people play dwarves. And I know that clearly Hollywood doesn't know that what he meant was, there are other parts besides dwarves for little people,
Yeah.
And they took that as, it's offensive, and from now on, dwarves have to be computer animated. And so the Lord of the Rings did it with The Hobbit, the Hobbit trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it in Snow White. And I haven't seen Snow White yet. Have you seen it, Caroline?
No interest.
Me either, really.
We should all check.
I will. I have girls, so I have to.
We should all check it out anyway, and then get back together on the podcast and talk about it.
Yeah, rock
We'll
on,
do
yeah.
that. Okay.
Okay, so this breaks the curse and causes Aurora to awaken, as Maleficent's motherly concern for Aurora constitutes true love. Aurora realizes how much Maleficent cares for her and begins to trust her again. Aurora forgives her and they attempt to flee the castle, but Maleficent is trapped in an iron net and attacked by Stefan and his guards. Maleficent transforms Diaval into a dragon and he lifts the net off of her, but is driven back by the soldiers.
It's a great pivot, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, the dragon move.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Good job of thinking on her feet.
The crap has hit the fan.
Yeah.
I need a dragon.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a good scene. Good. I love a good dragon. And, you know, of course, we all knew the dragon was coming because we've seen the cartoon.
Right.
And it was a cool twist that she didn't turn into the dragon. Yeah. It was Diaval this time. It's weird that they changed his name to Diaval in this. In the cartoon, it was Diablo. But I guess they mean the same thing. Just two different languages.
Oh, they do? Yeah. Oh. See, this is why I'm doing this, so I can learn.
Stefan beats Maleficent and taunts her, but before he can kill her, her wings, freed from his chamber by Aurora, fly back to her and reattach themselves.
Because sure.
Like Doctor Strange's cloak. Which is weird because like I never saw him move before this. And then, you know, she gets close to the castle and they start fluttering. And it was cool, but they should have had him like constantly moving, you know, so you knew that they were, you know, had their own kind of life, you know what I mean? Yeah.
You know?
With her wings back, Maleficent overpowers Stefan and carries him over a tower, but cannot bring herself to kill him, instead declaring the feud over. But Stefan tackles her from behind, dragging them both off the tower. She saves herself, but with her wings, while he loses hold and falls to his death. Great scene. Great. They did a good job of showing Maleficent to be the bigger person. You know, we're done. This is over, you know, and she turns her back and old dude ain't done. You know, she should have known by now. This dude don't listen and he can't be trusted, but she doesn't kill him. She did not kill him.
Again, she's a protector by nature.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
This is on him. Yeah. Maleficent soon undoes the dark magic in the Moors, restoring its formal light and beauty. The Moors and the human kingdom are now united, and Aurora is crowned queen of both kingdoms. Prince Philip and Aurora continue their romance, and Maleficent, now free from the chains of her vengeful thoughts, lives happily among the peaceful creatures of the Moors and flies happily through the skies with Diop. The narrator then reveals her own identity as an older Princess Aurora. And they don't say it in this movie.
Also, that the narrator was the older Princess Aurora.
Yeah. And it's not until the second movie at the very beginning of it that the narrator says, you know, you've heard the story, but, you know, it's wrong, you know, and they kind of play on, you know, after it all happened, people started to tell the story, but they told it wrong, you know? So now Maleficent's got this reputation as the bad guy, when in reality, she's not the bad guy, you know? You don't get that until the second movie.
Kind of a bad.
No. No, I don't think so.
Oh.
I think she was wrong. Then that's what drove her to take on this persona. It's a coping mechanism type of thing. At least,
Well put. She's the classic villain with nuance. She's misunderstood. She's been betrayed.
She's kind of anti-hero.
Yeah, she becomes reactive. But at the end of the day, we can line up her leadership style with several of the lessons from my book. The first one being from chapter 2, the very first lesson, you're always uncomfortable. Maleficent operates in pure discomfort. She's betrayed by Stefan. She's isolated in the Moors. She's in revenge mode 24/7, constantly forced to pivot, improvise, and endure emotional volatility. I've been there. You know, these are experiences the you know, I wrote about in my book. You know, she thrives in chaos. It makes her unpredictable, but, you know, she surfs the chaos, as I like to say. And she embodies, you know, the kind of discomfort that is transformative, you know? I mean, at the end, she flips the script on everybody and chooses mercy over malice. And then lesson 3 from chapter 4 of the book, sometimes you're the bad guy. I mean, exactly this. You know, she becomes the villain because, you know, others refuse to face hard truths and take ownership over their own actions. So she has to embrace the bad guy role because it's necessary, you know, not because she wants to be, but because sometimes, you know, leadership demands it. In project terms, you know, she's the project manager pulling the plug on a beloved but doomed initiative, you know. Not everybody likes it, but sometimes it's the right move to make, you know. Oh, King Stefan, in contrast, is the poster child for toxic ambition. We can take him back to lesson 2 from the book. You'll always have all the answers. Stefan acts like he has all the answers and all the power, but the dude's insecure. Instead of collaborating, he isolates. He doesn't ask for help. He takes what he wants, which leads to his downfall. His failure lies in his refusal to admit vulnerability, which is a deadly sin in leadership. It puts his whole kingdom at risk over his insecurities. And then I've also tied lesson 4 to King Stefan. Most of your time is spent managing people, not tasks. So where Maleficent builds relationships, even with cursed babies and Dieval, Stefan rules through fear. For him, people management is non-existent. That's not his strong suit at all. He doesn't do people management. He's all about control, zero trust, and it bites him in the ass. So again, Maleficent's whole thing is curse the baby. Her project, curse the baby, and unexpectedly develop a stakeholder relationship with the baby. But she adapts and she learns and she rolls back the scope with a huge change order. And pivots all together,
I see what you did there. Yeah. I like
she takes this project in a completely different direction and it works for her. Whereas Stefan's project is to secure the throne through sabotage and fortify it with paranoia and fear. Refuses to reassess the scope or the stakeholders and just totally fails. So at the end of the day, when we're talking about who's the better project manager and who's the better leader, without a doubt, it's Maleficent. Stefan's not even close.
Yeah, she's pretty damn good, if you ask me. Okay, so in prepping for all this, I was hyper-focused on Maleficent. I didn't really pay attention to Stefan, but he's a super interesting character to assess leadership skills, being a king and all, and, the questionable means in which he took to become king. But what was the question? Maleficent is she's a great project manager, great leader. If it weren't for the hate and revenge, I don't think you can be a good leader whenever you're hell-bent on revenge.
Yeah.
I think she was more hurt. I don't think it was revenge. I think it was rage from being hurt and betrayed.
Rage.
It was rage.
See, I attributed revenge as like the whole theme of the movie.
She was enraged by the betrayal. That's what drove her through the entire.
She really was. That scene where she screams over and over. She just keeps screaming over and over.
That's the rage. That's rage.
You got to admit, placing the curse on Aurora was a little vengeful. Well, it was done out of rage and anger.
But I think you're saying maybe that the revenge came from the rage. It was a product of the rage.
Yeah.
She was, yes. So it had everything to do with the rage that she felt because of Stefan's betrayal. She trusted and she was betrayed. Then she became enraged and then she became capricious when she saw that Stefan had become the king and he had a daughter that he loved. She wanted to hurt him. She wanted him to feel the same rage that she felt when he took her wings. And that was her way of trying to even it out or get the payback. But she developed a bond with Aurora and that changed everything.
So let's rate their leadership and their project management skills. So we're looking at all of the key things when you're looking at leadership and project management: strategic vision, emotional intelligence, crisis management, team building, ethical leadership, adaptability. All in all, I think that Maleficent, even though, she initially lets her rage influence her decision making, she is very emotionally intelligent. She's good at crisis management. She's better at team building than
charismatic.
Yeah. Than Stefan is.
A room, very large presence.
At the ethical leadership side, at the very beginning with the curse, she's not the most ethical thing in the world, but she learns from it. She realizes her mistake. She admits her mistake, which is that goes back to emotional intelligence. I have
100%.
Zero respect for somebody who can't admit when they've made a mistake.
Well, that's because you're a man. It's part of being a man.
Self-accountability.
Yeah, I don't think that that's a man thing. I mean, Caroline,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I want to clarify. Don't let me be all misogynistic. I'm just saying, as a man, it's like, to me, it's one of my like MOs is like a real man is somebody who can own up to their mistakes.
Yeah.
It's just something that's personal to me, that particular.
Look, I'm not gonna tie it to a specific gender. In my opinion, a good leader, a good person in general, admits to their mistakes, owns them, learns from them, and mentors other people to not make the same mistakes that we made. So my ratings, I'm giving Maleficent a 4 out of 5 on project management and leadership. I'm giving Stefan 1.5. I don't think that he was, I mean, we'll give him some points for strategic vision because he went from, peasant boy living in a barn to king. Emotional intelligence, 0. Crisis management, I mean, he hired some iron workers. We'll give him a 2. Team building, he's the king. Everybody has to listen to him, ethical leadership, none. Adaptability, again, he hired some iron workers. We'll give him a 2. I'm giving him a 1.5. Where are you at?
Again, Maleficent, I think she's great. I think she, if it weren't for the
I'm really only docking her points for the curse. I might even give her a 4.5.
right. She's 4.5 for her. Stefan, he's not. What'd you give him? A 2?
1.5.
A 1.5. Yeah, I mean, he's got to be good at he's good at delegating. No, he's good at propaganda. He villainized Maleficent. No, I don't know. He's definitely no more than a 3. I mean, he's 2 or 3.
Yeah. I like how every single one of these, we do this rating. Seth's participated in every one of them. And every time we get to the part where we rate, he's surprised. Like, oh, this is the thing that we do?
Yeah.
Where you at, Caroline? Scale from 1 to 5, leadership and project management skills for both Maleficent and Stefan.
I'm going to give Maleficent a 5. Only because she did turn around even after she placed that curse on the princess. She did try to right it. She tried to shield her and protect her. She did what was right. Stefan, he just bombed it. He gets 0 from me. He's a no-go. He's just
0.
0.
Yeah.
The 0.
I love it. So yeah, at the end of the day, Maleficent demonstrates, transformative leadership. She learns from her mistakes. She evolves from, vengeance to guardianship. And she has a high emotional intelligence and very adaptable. Stefan is autocratic, driven by fear and control, and it leads to isolation and his eventual downfall, literal downfall. Now on the mother's head side, because again, this is our Mother's Day episode. A happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers out there, especially mine. Love you, Mom. Maleficent's the clear winner here. Queen Leela apparently did die before Aurora came back, so we'll never know. But she's so absent. She never comes to the forest to visit her daughter. And then the 3 fairies, they're just, like I said, inept. Kind of out of their element, had no business taking on that task in the first place. I did like how they briefly kind of played on the famous scene where they're baking a cake and making a dress. We didn't get to see them make a dress. We saw a really crappy cake. They did. It seems like they messed up in that. The blue fairy slaps the pink fairy, and there's blue all over her face. Aurora walks in, they address it, and then immediately they kind of flash back and all the blue paint's off of her face. And they even do like a close up of just her face. No blue paint whatsoever. I feel like they messed up there. The filmmakers did, but continuity errors happen, I guess. But if we're rating their motherhood on, nurturing, guidance, and protection, I guess we can give Queen Leela some points for protection. Cause she thought that, she was doing the right thing in letting the fairies take her daughter to the forest. I don't know how much, there was no guidance there whatsoever, and we didn't get to see much nurturing. The 3 fairies maybe a little more nurturing than Queen Leela. Guidance, none. And protection, come on, she fell off a cliff. Whereas Maleficent is very nurturing. She's constantly keeping an eye. She's very protective and offers guidance, and is somebody that Aurora can speak to and talk to and learn from. I'm going to give Queen Leela, I'm going to be generous and give her a 2. I'm going to give the fairies a 3 just because they were a little better than Queen Leela. But Maleficent gets a 5 in my book. Where are you at?
I find it hard to disagree with your ratings.
No?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the fairies were, they were present. They were always there goofing off. Yeah, I have a hard time disagreeing with yours.
What do you got, Caroline?
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly. You know, Leela, for whatever reason, I would never let someone take the child, you know, to protect her. I would stay with her. I would
Yeah,
keep an eye
there's a
on
better way.
Yeah.
First of all, you're 100% right in the beginning. Let's go ahead and burn the damn spinning wheels.
You know, all of them, like, burn everything so that there is no way that a single one can be magically reassembled. It's just
Yeah.
not gonna
Let's find an alternative for yarn in the first place. If you got to have yarn, then we'll find an alternative that we can do without a spinning wheel.
Stop talking to wings and figure out how to change industry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
So yeah, Maleficent emerges as the true maternal figure for Aurora, or Briar Rose. Don't ever call her Briar Rose in this. She provides that emotional depth and protection that, you know, she doesn't get from her biological mother or her adoptive caregivers. All in all, it's a good movie. Excited to have you back to do number 2. Maybe we'll get to it before season 2 is over. If not, for sure, season 3. And then again, it'd be fun to do Snow White as well, especially considering that none of us have high expectations for it.
Well, I do have to admit that Maleficent Sleeping Beauty has always been my favorite fairy tale because of Maleficent.
Yeah.
Only because of Maleficent. Because, like I said, I knew right from the first time I saw this, that there's something else. There's something between her and Stefan, and it's not being told. One day it will be told. And when we were told, I said, now that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, no, I can't say that I ever looked further into it like you do or like you did. But, I thought that they did a great job of telling the other side of the story. They're not the first people to do this. There was, Wicked is big. That came out, last year? And that's, from a book where they did the same thing. It was, the witch's side of the story, And I love that whole, there's always two sides to the story thing, especially in this world where, you have some people that don't ever get on social media and you have other people that spend their entire lives on social media and airing out dirty laundry. And, it's easy to be like, oh man, I know this person so well, even though I've met them like 3 times, because they always posting their dirty laundry on social media, but at the end of the day, you're only getting that side of the story.
Yeah. That's not that person.
Yeah. And I know people who are, they're always the victim in their stories, and you got to ask yourself, what's the other side of that story? I got a feeling you're not the victim all the time. You know what I mean? You're certainly the constant in all of these stories. You're the number one constant,
Common denominator.
Yeah, Ted. I'm just kidding. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm not talking about anybody specific.
Kidding. No, I'm kidding.
There's just, people, some people. All right. Anybody got any closing thoughts?
All I can
You
say is
always
I can
go so
relate
deep and branch off in ways that I'm always so unprepared for. I got to get more prepared. Carolyn?
I can only say that I can relate to Maleficent. I'm always misunderstood by people.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I have been sitting here just quietly struggling to not share the story about the project that it's
please do.
the whole story.
Yeah, you have to now.
Okay, so I was asked to do a kitchen and I did multiple revisions and it is a beautiful, beautiful kitchen. And they felt that I was taking a little bit too long and we decided to just let it go. And basically,
When you say let it go, did you terminate the contract or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because both of us did. We spoke about it. Because it was the constant micromanaging and asking for more and not realizing that there's a lot more that's going on behind the scenes than what they're seeing. They're seeing a finished product, like an image, and I'm looking at every single detail.
Yeah, they don't see that invisible workload that you're doing behind the scenes.
Correct.
As designers, project managers, contractors, we're oftentimes the villain in the story.
Oh, yeah.
And usually we're just trying to play the cards we're dealt, and you can't please them all,
You definitely can't. And I'm okay with the decision because when you don't have a plan, as you well know, and you say you're going to take bits and pieces from this that I've already done, I've shown you this version and then this version, you don't have an actual plan. How do you get permitting? How do you have something to present to get our accurate pricing? You can't. It's going to be a mess. So I'm literally Maleficent right now.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like this client, contracted you, delegated the job out to you, but then didn't get out of your way and let you cook, constantly throwing curveballs. Hey, I was watching HGTV and I saw this. Can we integrate this in? I guess we can,
5 revisions.
Yeah.
The last email
5's too many.
had 3. And I was like, so they're very similar. I mean, we had the interview. Let's talk about this. And I just said, hey, this is a lot. A lot.
Yeah.
It's not just move this here. It's the little details. Once we get to the detail portion of drafting, that takes so much long. And I was 30 minutes away from sending them their email with their final vision. And we had that conversation. And I said, I guess I won't be sending. So that's why I feel like Maleficent. They terminated, we terminated. I agreed to it. And I said, no hard feelings whatsoever. But since it was terminated before I could send it, that's it.
Yeah. That's your property. You don't get it.
And yeah. And we all know what's going to happen. We all know what's going to happen and how it's going to work.
A baby's going to get cursed.
Yes. And it's going to fall off the cliff. And then it's going to keep going from there. And I may get that phone call where I have to, show some growth and more maturity and make a decision. That's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to leave anyone in that position. However, they'll have lessons that are.
Yeah. Admittedly, phone calls in situations like that don't work good for me. I have a habit of saying how I feel. Whereas if I can put it in email, I'll type it out the way I feel and write the meanest, dirtiest email and then go back and go, okay, we got to clean this up. And I'll tell you what, ChatGPT has been super helpful on that. I can write an email the meanest way the way I feel, and say evil things and then send it to ChatGPT and say, make this sound professional. And it's a lifesaver. It's been great for me.
Well, I was very diplomatic, just very cool-headed about it, even though I had already invested that time. And I just said, okay. And I gave them some really sage advice. Be wary of this. Be careful with this. Just be careful.
And good luck.
Yeah. And I was like, I wish you the best on that project. And that's all I can do. And then I just called it a day.
Yeah, so, absolutely. That's all you can do.
Yeah, that's all I can.
Well, you'll answer.
Baby, just say, if there's one thing we learned today.
It might fall off the cliff. It might fall off the cliff. I mean, and I may be called to catch it before it expires. I don't know.
In which case, you're not going to take that call, right?
I would definitely take it out of courtesy and explain that they are no longer on my docket.
Yeah, and give them an F off price. I'll sweep up the pieces for this number.
Well, I would be very honest with them and tell them, everything is going to come to a complete stop because now I have to go back and look at everything.
Yeah.
I have to also contact all of the other clients and their projects that we have ongoing and discuss the possible, fact that I may not be as present as they expect me to be because I'm trying to assist someone. However, I just don't believe in making my clients that trust the process pay for someone who didn't trust. And
Yeah.
it's just the
100%.
way that it works. So yeah, I feel totally like Maleficent, right? Like, but I'm not cursing any projects. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm truly wishing them the best. I'm just aware of what's coming. I know what's
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Caroline, thank you so much for joining us today again on the Hard Knock University podcast. Happy Mother's Day, and come see us next time.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and it is always a pleasure.
You know what I love about our sponsor this season, SMG Academy? Listen, 20-year veteran Mark Sebi is just spilling the beans for members like me on industry secrets most people guard with their lives. I was just reading this article on the SMG blog spot the other day, 10 ways to leverage podcasting to boost your music career. And it's packed with real usable tactics, from sharing behind the scenes content and promoting your music to monetizing your podcast with platforms like hero.fm, offering exclusive merch and building an email list that actually converts. This stuff is gold. He even breaks down how to use podcast analytics to grow your audience and drive traffic to your tour dates, music drops, or merch store. Look, if you're a musician trying to grow your brand off stage, podcasting is your secret weapon, and SMG Academy is the place to learn how to do it. Visit smgacademy.online and use promo code HKU2025 for 15% off of your enrollment. SMG Academy, where hustle meets harmony.
Flip the pages, take a peek. It's time to dive in every week. Hard Knock, you got brains on fleek. Book of the week.
All right, everybody, let's talk about our book of the week, Drop the Ball by Tiffany Dufu. Now, if you caught last week's episode, you know I didn't exactly give Fair Play a glowing 5-star review. In fact, I think my exact words were a lecture from someone who wouldn't last 2 minutes in a working class living room.
Oh dear, what an awkward situation.
But Drop the Ball, this one's different. This one's a breath of fresh air. Tiffany Dufu didn't grow up in Beverly Hills with a nanny and a trust fund. She came up hard. Poverty, addiction in the family, alcoholism, the whole 9 yards. She clawed her way into success, and you can feel it in every word of this book. This isn't a manifesto on how men are the root of all domestic evil. In fact, it reads more like a love letter to her husband and to men like him, men trying to show up, trying to lead, trying to partner without being micromanaged into oblivion. Tiffany talks honestly, and I mean refreshingly honest, about how society has sold both men and women a load of garbage about what we're supposed to be doing. She acknowledges something that most books on this topic tiptoe around, that men have an invisible workload too. The pressure to provide, the unspoken expectations, the way we're socialized to be competent in crisis but absent in details. And that's what really hit me. She talks about how she had her own blinders and how real growth came not when she asked for help, but when she let go of the damn steering wheel. She tells a story about her husband scheduling the dry cleaning to be delivered. Dry cleaning, delivered. She didn't even know that was an option because, like so many of us, she was too busy doing everything herself to look for better solutions. That's real stuff. Or how about how her husband was able to book a babysitter in a couple of hours when it usually took her days? Not because she was bad at it, but because he did it his way. A different way, not wrong, just not hers. That's not marriage advice. That's project management gold. Because sometimes the reason your team isn't stepping up is because you're clinging to control. You're running yourself ragged because you've convinced yourself that you're the only one that knows how to do it right. Look, Drop the Ball makes a compelling case for letting go, not just in relationships, but in leadership. It's about trust, delegation, clarity, and respect. Those aren't soft skills. That's the core of running a damn good team. So yeah, this book, Drop the Ball, It's on my must-read list now, not just for how much it can transform your marriage, but because it'll 100% sharpen your leadership lens too. Drop the Ball is a wake-up call. And if you've been juggling everything, afraid to drop anything, maybe the smartest thing you can do is let something fall. Whether you're married, managing a team, or just tired of being the bottleneck in your own damn life, Drop the Ball will open your eyes and loosen your grip. And for that, Tiffany Dufu, you've got my respect.
Welcome to the knockback your seat. Mark's got the feedback, quick on his feet. Got your hard knock lessons in the mix. Brace yourself, his burns are slick.
Look, I know change can be scary. 1 minute, you're playing freeze tag out there at recess. Next thing you know, you're getting zits, your voice gets low, and every time your art teacher, Miss Scanlon, leans over your desk, you feel all squiggly inside. She was a striking woman. Not classically beautiful, but striking.
Okay, folks, it's time for your favorite segment where we take fictional chaos, run it through a real-world lens, and see what leadership lessons rise from the ashes. This is the Knock. This week, Maleficent versus King Stefan, a tale of curses, betrayal, and a whole lot of project management. Let's break it down. Did King Stefan fail at stakeholder management by ignoring Maleficent after their childhood bond? Well, hell yes, he did. Look, if you're trying to build a kingdom or run a successful remodel and you ghost a former ally turned power player, dude, you failed magnificently at stakeholder management. Lesson 4 from the Hard Knock School of Project Management says it loud and clear. Most of your time is spent managing people, not tasks. Stefan didn't just drop the ball. He spiked it into a pit of dragon fire. You can't manage your kingdom if you're not managing your relationships. King Stefan ghosted a major influencer in his kingdom's ecosystem. That's not just personal betrayal. That's a stakeholder management fail that came back with wings and fire. The hashtag Hard Knock lesson, if you don't manage your stakeholders, they'll manage you, usually with pitchforks.
Pitchforks? Humans are hilarious.
Number 2, was Maleficent's curse a catastrophic escalation caused by poor conflict resolution? Absolutely. That curse was the medieval version of rage quitting a group chat permanently. This was a textbook example of what happens when people don't feel heard. Stefan didn't just burn a bridge, he lit it with her wings. You violate trust like that, and you're not just inviting retaliation, you're project managing your own fail. This ties into lesson 2. You'll rarely have all the answers. Instead of communicating or course correcting, Stefan doubled down on ego. That's not leadership, that's emotional landmines. As a result, Maleficent didn't just cross a boundary, she turned the whole christening into a TED Talk of vengeance. Had Stefan handled things like a leader instead of a ladder-climbing coward, he might have had peace. Instead, well, worst baby shower ever. The hashtag Hard Knock lesson, unaddressed conflict always comes back with interest.
Oh dear, what an awkward situation.
Could King Stefan's obsession with delivering results, in this instance defeating Maleficent, be seen as scope creep disguised as legacy building? Yep. Look, that man took one deliverable, protect the kingdom, and inflated it into a personal vendetta. Classic scope creep. Started with defense, ended with war, sleepless paranoia, and hammering iron in the middle of the night like a madman. On this one, we can go back to lesson 7. The best plans will still fall apart, especially when those plans are built on revenge, not results. Stefan lost his project because he lost sight of the why behind the what. He started with protect the kingdom and wound up in a bunker forging anti-fairy weapons. That's not strategy. That's emotional overcommitment. The hashtag Hard Knock lesson, scope creep doesn't always look like chaos. Sometimes it wears a crown, calls itself legacy.
But Scott, who's going to take over the world when I die?
Listen to the words he used. Who's going to take over the world when I die? Feels like that to some of us sometimes, doesn't it?
Number 4, did Maleficent become a better leader after dropping the ball and letting others like Diaval take ownership? This one, big yes. Once she stopped micromanaging and empowered her team, shout out to Diaval, the MVP shapeshifter and ride or die, she became a more balanced leader. This is straight out of Drop the Ball and reinforced in lesson 6. You're a translator for everyone and everything. When she let Dioval take initiative, she started delegating, not dictating. That's the difference between a tyrant and a team builder. When she stopped treating Dioval like a tool and started treating him like a team member, everything shifted. Delegation equals power. The hashtag hard knock lesson, leadership happens when you stop hoarding control and start trusting your crew.
Oh, come on, that's funny.
Number 5, was King Stefan's downfall a classic example of emotional leadership failure where fear and ego replaced logic and communication? Yeah, I mean, they say heavy is the head that wears the crown, but for King Stefan, his crown didn't weigh heavy, his ego did it. Stefan never recovered from the fear that Maleficent would come back stronger. He led from a place of paranoia, not principle. When you lead from fear, your whole team starts watching the exit door. We learned this lesson last week when we were talking about Dr. Evil. And this is why lesson number 3, sometimes you're the bad guy, hits so hard. Because being the bad guy doesn't mean you feel bad. It means you make the tough calls with clear eyes. Stefan never did it. He led from fear, isolated himself. Paranoia took the wheel, and pride locked the doors. That's a leadership death spiral. The hashtag hard knock lesson, fear-led leadership always ends in failure, and usually in flames. So what do we learn from all of this? Well, that even in fairy tales, the real villains aren't always the ones with horns. Sometimes they're the ones who refuse to listen, refuse to delegate, and build entire legacies on fear instead of trust. Don't be Stefan. Build your kingdom. Don't burn it. Because at the end of the day, your project doesn't need a hero. It needs a human with backbone, empathy, and a halfway decent communication plan.
There's nothing more pathetic than an aging hipster.
I'm Mark Caples. This has been The Knockback, only on the Hard Knock University podcast. All right, folks, let's bring this thing home. Today, we flew through the flaming hoops of Maleficent's leadership, King Stefan's failure, and the invisible labor that turns castles and households into functional ecosystems. We broke down Tiffany Dufu's Drop the Ball, a book that earned its spot on my must-read list, not just for saving marriages, but for how it reframes delegation, trust, and letting go. Lessons that hit just as hard on the job site as they do in the living room. We asked the hard questions in our knockback segment, like whether King Stefan was just a royal-level micromanager and if Maleficent might have been a better PM all along.
Oh dear, what an awkward situation.
And I shared how my wife, Jen, after 20 years in early childhood education, is stepping into a second-grade classroom this fall. She's the real MVP that this episode is dedicated to. But next week, we're flipping the script from fairy tales to Agent of Chaos. We're breaking down the project management style of Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight. Joining me will be Todd Roth and Tom DeVeronica, and we'll be unpacking that iconic line. It's not about money, it's about sending a message. Love that. Book of the week, a little light reading. The Art of War by Sun Tzu. You know, just in case you need to win a few metaphorical or literal boardroom bouts. But before we go, today's episode reminds us of a truth they don't put in the textbooks. Leadership isn't about doing it all. It's about knowing when to let go, when to trust your people, or when to drop the damn ball. Not because you're failing, but because you're finally giving someone else the chance to rise. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. We've been sold this myth, especially women, especially mothers, that good means holding every plate, remembering every date, managing every little thing like the world might fall apart if you blink. But what Drop the Ball taught us, what Maleficent's arc shows us, and what every seasoned project manager knows deep down is this. You don't build greatness by gripping everything tight. You build it by trusting the people around you to carry it forward. Whether you're leading a construction crew, classroom, kingdom, or your own chaotic household, the principles don't change. Clarity over control, trust over ego, love over legacy. And to all the mothers out there, the ones who lead in sweatpants and spreadsheets, in minivans and boardrooms, at 3 a.m. with a bottle or during a staff meeting with a broken copier, to the moms who drop the ball only to pick up their people every single day. You're the blueprint. And yeah, I'm talking to all moms, but I'm also talking to you, my mom. I know you're watching, and I thank you for that. Love you. Look, you're the blueprint. You're the reason we learn resilience. You're the reason we believe in redemption. You're the reason that we know what leadership looks like in the first place. So go rest, go laugh, let something drop, and don't you dare feel guilty for it, because your leadership echoes louder, farther, and deeper than you'll ever know. Happy Mother's Day. This has been the Hard Knock University podcast, where we honor the chaos, celebrate the grit, and learn the lessons the hard way together. I'm Mark Caples, and I'll catch you next week.